Alright, so let's talk about using GetComponent in Unity here. So just as a little setup here, I have basically a blank project. I have one script, and it's just a blank script from here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to right click in the hierarchy. I'm going to click on Create Empty, and we're going to call this Game Manager. And we're going to drag and drop the Game Manager script on here. Now do keep in mind here, the Game Manager script is completely empty right now. There's really nothing to it. Now we're also going to go ahead and right click, create empty, 2D object, sprites, square, and let's call this player. Now the game is very simple right now, but what we want to do is we want to get some type of reference to the player in the Game Manager script from here. And then once we have a reference to the player in the Game Manager script, we're going to go ahead and change the color of this sprite in scene here. And this is just conceptual for getting component. Once you understand this concept from here, there's a lot that you can do. There's a lot that you can build up from here. If we're talking about a rigid body being on the player, if we're talking about some type of text, if we're talking about a audio manager, different things like that here. Once you understand the get component, things become a lot easier in Unity here. So back to the Game Manager script. What I'm going to do is I'm going to declare a public variable of type game object, and let's just call this player from here. Now do keep in mind here that the player is the name of the variable and the game object is the type here. So really I could name this whatever I wanted to, but right now player makes the most sense. Back to my Unity window. Now we created a variable in the script, some type of jar to hold the player game with an object, but it's not linked up yet. So back to Game Manager, and I'm going to drag in the player right to there. So now this script knows that the player that we're talking about in the script here is this player game object right there. And I'm going to go ahead and save my scene here. And then back to the script. Now usually when you first create a script here, you get the start method. If you don't have that, it's going to be void start with a capital S. You may also see public void. Right now it really doesn't make a difference, right? All the same thing here. Now, since the start method is called on the beginning of the script here, that's what we want to do just for this demonstration. Of course, you could call the method whenever you want to, but right now we're just going to do it on the start method from here. So I'm going to say player.getComponent. You can see it's already kind of suggesting it from there. GetComponent. And the way that I autocomplete that is just by tab on my keyboard. And since we're trying to get the sprite renderer component of the player here, we're going to say getComponent sprite renderer. You can see it kind of suggests it from there. Now this is going to be called like a method, and then I want a property of that sprite renderer. So right now, why don't we say let's do .color, and we're going to set this equal to color capital C, and let's make this .red for right now. .red. So with any luck here, when we play the script from here, this script is going to run through here. We have a reference to the player, and the start method's going to get called on the beginning of the scene here. It's going to go into the player game object. It's going to find the sprite renderer, and then it's going to make the color property on the sprite renderer red. Let's see if we can make that work. Let's go ahead and hit play. And we can see now it changes it to red automatically, right? And of course, if I want to do it on a keystroke, or if I want to do it on some type of update method or on a collision, I could do that too. I would just have to call this line of code at a different time here. Now do keep in mind here, this is just one example, but what I could do here is I could select a different property on the sprite renderer and change that too, right? Because I have the get component. This is the important part from there. Let's try get component. Why don't we say, we're not going to be able to see a flip here because it's basically a symmetrical shape, but why don't we try the why don't we do enabled? Enabled. So this is one way to turn off the sprite renderer here, and we'll set this equal to false. So in this specific scenario, we're not going to turn the game object off. So the game object will still be active. We're just going to turn the sprite renderer off. So if there's a background script running, or if there was some type of some type of process going on in the background, or maybe some music still going, this would still work. All this is going to do is just make sure it's not rendered in scene there. Kind of like, whoops, kind of like that from there. So we're not going to see it anymore. Let's go ahead and hit play. And then we can see that the game object, the player, is still active in scene here, but the sprite renderer was then disabled, right? Let's do one more here. Why don't we add a component? let's see about a different component from here. Why don't we see something like, why don't we make a new script here, and this gets a little more advanced, but that's okay. Create C# script. We're going to call this player manager. And then we're going to take the player manager script, and we're going to plop it onto the player game object. So we can see that if we attach a script from here, it works just like a component, right? It's kind of like a custom-made component in a sense here. I'm going to go ahead and save the scene. And what I can then do here, go over to my player manager script. I can remove all of this. And if I say something like public, and we'll say something like score, excuse me, I should say int score, and set this equal to 0. If we go back to the scene here, on player, now we can see the score is 0. And what that also means here, if I go back to game manager, and let's go ahead and reduce that there, is I can say public.getComponent player manager dot score, where I can access the property or a variable on the script here, and then I can set this equal to 10. Right? Back to the scene here. So in this case, we won't see it in scene, but we'll see it over here in the inspector. And now we can see we updated that score from 0 to 10 there. All right. Now, if you guys learned something, be sure to give me a thumbs up, comment down below, and subscribe. I'm going to be putting out a lot more videos and a lot more content. So if you guys want to check it out, be sure to subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.